This podcast will fail, and that's probably okay, but I can be wrong, so who knows? Episode 59. This podcast will fail. I'm your host. I'm just some guy. Who I am is relevant to the conversations that I come here to have with you and with myself, and lately, and hopefully a lot more going forward, with some other folks as well. So this is the launch of Season 4. This season is going to be titled Coming to Terms. Much like with the first season of this podcast, the whole genesis of this podcast was built as a way for me to work through some stuff. I have been a digital content creator for the last 15 years. I have tried and failed multiple times to build a following and build a name, and I decided to sit down earlier this fall and just start talking, just start working through some of the things that I needed to say out loud to myself and think through everything I've done for the past 15 years. And it felt great, and it was a lot of fun, so I kept going. And through Season 2, I started taking a closer look at life and society, talking about people, right? The way we think, the way we react, how we deal with things in the world. Season 3, I decided to try and reach out and ask some questions and hopefully get some responses back from folks to even further take this idea of picking the brains of other people to help me explore and help me understand the world a little better. So here we are in Season 4. This is just about the beginning of December of 2020. Thank God we're almost there, kids. The year is grinding to a painful conclusion. A lot has happened this year. A lot of people have been through a lot of things, myself included. It's not been an easy year for just about anybody, but we've made it this far. So all this month, I am going to start digging into some of my own personal, I don't think the word's trauma. It's almost like a cliche thing to say. But I think that this is an opportunity for me to look at my life beyond just, the role of a content creator that I've been trying to play. But who I am as a person, where I've been, what I've experienced, and frankly, come to terms with some of the things I've done in my life. Some of the, I guess less savory parts of my thought process and my interaction with the rest of the world. So there's certainly plenty, but more than that, I'm going to not just focus on myself, but I want to take a closer look at the things that we as people, right, specifically those of you here in the continental United States with me, some things that we need to come to terms with, some of the more difficult themes, the things that we don't or frankly can't talk about to ourselves and with each other, the things that just seem to automatically drive a wedge between people, between families, between friends, between strangers. There's supposedly more that unites us than divides us, but it sure is tough to find much of any of it anywhere right now. So I think we'll spend a little bit of time talking through that stuff as well. However, I do have some things to say out loud. Again, I come here to have these conversations primarily with myself, and it appears that some of you are listening in as well, and I appreciate that, and it's interesting to see how people are reacting to a podcast that is not promoted in any way. There is no social media. There is no hook There's no trying to gain followers and subscribers. I'm just talking. I'm just making conversations and putting them out there and seeing who responds to them. I haven't ever told you my name, nor will I. So those are some themes that are further to be explored as we move along into this here season 4. So on that note, I guess I will start this conversation here, this first episode of season 4, with I guess a little bit of perspective and background of who I am. So if you haven't listened to any of the earlier episodes of this podcast, I'm a husband of 26 years to the same beautiful woman. I am a father to 6 cool friggin' kids. 3 of them are actually adults now. I'm an office jockey, manager monkey. I do Lumberg work. That's who I am. If you've ever watched the movie Office Space, professionally, I am Lumberg from that movie. But prior to any of that, I was a very lonely and troubled kid. I didn't come from a particularly savory nor stable background. So I am the youngest of 3 boys in the family. My parents divorced when I was 3, and I have some pretty traumatic memories of that period of time. And I'll explore some more of those specifics in future. I'm not going to spend the whole time going through all of it right now, because there's pieces that are a little more nuanced, and that I want to allow myself to walk through them and talk through them dispassionately. My mother was, again, a single mom trying to raise 3 boys. There was some family around her aunt and things like that kind of helped and supported a bit. But she was pretty disconnected. There's she worked a lot, but she was when she was not working, she was pretty well holed up in her own little world and wasn't very approachable or reachable. So as a young kid, it was kind of a weird relationship to have with this person who I only saw for an hour or 2 every day before she would go to bed, and some of that was dinner, and that's about it. Later on in late teenage life, we probably connected a little bit better than when I was little, but I understand that as a father of older teenagers and young adults. I understand it better now than I did back then, what it's like to suddenly look at this baby, this child, as a person, as another personality and individual that you can interact with in an adult way, in a grown-up way, and have actual substantive conversations. When I look back, I don't recall having any substantive conversations with my mother until I got married. I got married at age 19. Actually, 1 week after I turned 19, my wife and I got married. My mother wasn't happy about it. My mother wasn't happy about a lot of things. She was a control freak. As much as she was distant in a lot of ways, she still expected that she would be the one to have the final say when it came to anything to do with me or with my sons or any of that. And it was when my sons came along. My wife and I had a pretty decent 3-year honeymoon before we decided to start building a family. And as soon as it comes to being a grandparent, and she had been a grandparent previously, my older brothers have kids, man, she just wanted her thumb on every single aspect of my kids' lives and my life, and it was tough. It was really tough because this is hard. This is actually harder than I thought it would be, but it's important that I walk through these things. So my mother, she was a harsh individual, and she found everything darkly funny. So in the 1970s, this is to just give you an idea of what kind of person she was, because she married my father super young, I believe 17 that she was, and she got married because of my oldest brother coming along. And she in the 1970s, she got into that wood burning. Are y'all old enough, or your parents ever show you where you get like a slice of a piece of wood or a tree, and you use like a branding iron kind of thing to make designs or burn words or patterns into a piece of wood? Well, that's one of her things. She did a lot of that. And one of her prized possessions was a wood sort of display sign plaque kind of thing that she had burned for herself, and it hung right above her pillow on her wall behind her bed, and the sign read, "Queen Redneck Bitch of the Universe." I gotta tell you that so succinctly wraps up my mother that I just, it's staggering. I actually should say, I should stop and preface this for just a second here. My mother passed away a long time ago. She actually died in the year 2000, and she was only 50 years old, which as a 45-year-old guy, that's another weird piece of perspective to add on to things. But anyways, so that's who she was in life on purpose, and she enjoyed it. I recall one time we would go up to Canada. Her father lived in Canada, so we would make this trek north to go visit him a couple times a year. And one time on the way home, we got stopped by a state trooper because both the registration and inspection stickers on the car were all expired, and my mother was speeding. And because all of those things were expired, my mother also had a suspended license. So I was 17 years old, and I had my learner's permit. And so the state trooper pulls us over and starts giving my mom the business. And listen, I'm not making this up when I tell you that my mother was the woman who did not remove the cigarette from between her lips before telling the cop to kiss her ass. And all credit to whoever this cop was, because he remained calm. You know, this little 5'4" red-haired woman just blasting him over, how dare you even, I'm visiting family and I'm taking my kids home and this is BS. And so at the end of it, the cop basically gave her a choice. He says, this is going to end one of two ways. Either you're going in the back of my car and I will call for a ride for your children and have this vehicle towed, or that young man there, and we had already verified, he had asked if I had my learner's permit. He said, or that young man there with an actual valid ability to drive will be the one driving this vehicle home, and you will go in the back seat. And Jesus Christ, her face turned as red as her hair, and she relented. You know, I think that you want to be arrested right now and have your kids abandoned on the side of the road and lose your car? Great, let's go. We can dance. But she was defiant straight through, and she acquiesced, and I drove home. Whew, that was rough. That was her. That was my mother. You know, she had no patience for anybody, no time for anybody other than what she wanted and what she felt was worthwhile and what she thought was funny. She smoked like a goddamn chimney. That was this was all through all three of the pregnancies, right? My brothers and I. She smoked like a chain smoker all the way through, right? And two of us have severe asthma issues all through life. My middle brother was clearly preemie and stunted. He's only 5'6", 5'7" maybe. I think he's 5'7". Whereas I'm 5'10" and my other brother's 6 foot. She didn't care. You weren't going to convince this person that she shouldn't be smoking. Screw you. Fuck you. This is my vice. This is what I have. I'm allowed. I can do what I want. Leave me alone. I tried many times to get her to quit. Tried different things and even trying to bring up me and my brothers and our health issues was met with a, "Oh, you're not dead. You're fine. Look at you." She's like, "You're obviously well enough what'd she say? You're obviously well enough to mouth off to me. So must be okay." Wow. When I moved out, right, I was going to get this apartment and get out of her house. I mean, when I talk about the smoking, Jesus Christ, it was every day, all day. It was in the car. Whenever we're going anywhere, the windows are up and I'm sitting in a cloud. It was at the dinner table, for Christ's sake. Like, she would cook dinner every night, and I would sit at the table with her. And later on, as a teenager, my stepfather, and he chain smoked like a mother too. And it's literally eating food in a cloud of tobacco cigarette smoke. That was my life. I mentioned, I think once in an earlier podcast, that I went to a private Catholic school. I got hauled aside when there was a new principal, a new nun, came to be the principal of the school. And like first day, she was in the hallway inspecting the kids walking in a line, and she grabs my shirt and hauls me out of line and throws me in her office and wants to start berating me about smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, "Sister, it's not me. It's my mother. My parents smoke around me." Whoa. Yeah. There's no good conversations came out of that. But so I needed to get out, and I was able to get this apartment. And she taught me to be this way, okay? She taught me to be this way. I went to Walmart and I bought a sign that said "no smoking." And I put it on my door. This is like a shitty little basement, 1-bedroom, rent-controlled apartment out on the outskirts of one of the major suburbs. Almost rural, not quite. And so the first time that she's going to come over to the house, or the apartment, to visit and see the apartment, she I hear the car, wheeze and groan to a stop out front, door open, the door to the building. I hear her clomping down the stairs to get to the basement, and before she even got to the bottom of the stairs, I heard her voice ring out, "Oh, fuck you!" And "That's bullshit." Just ranting. Just absolutely ranting. And she left. She did not come in the house. I swear to God, she didn't talk to me for 3 months after that. Didn't return a phone call. Didn't call me. Didn't want anything to do with me for months over that slight. How dare you? How dare you? That was one of the things that she eventually said. So then we fast forward a little bit. She never had money. My wife and I, we were figuring things out, young and stupid, getting into debt, scraping by, trying to figure out what real jobs we're supposed to have. And so eventually my oldest son comes along, and everything's okay there. 18 months later, number 2, who is Gideon, who you actually met just an episode or so ago, came along. Here's Mom one more time. So names are important to me and my wife, and all of our kids' names have meaning. There's a specific meaning behind it, and that's just what we do. It's who we are. So we knew that this boy's name was going to be Gideon, and my mother was not happy at all. So we found out that she did this same thing to my oldest brother with his first child, but she came to me and said, look, I know things are tough for you guys, but you can't name this baby this name, this ridiculous name. And, she literally tried to bribe me. She offered me $500 that I know she didn't have. I don't know where she thought she was going to get $500 from, but literally offered me $500 to not name my child what I wanted to name him. And again, she did this to my older brother too, and he gave her the same response I did, which is no. Yeah, that was my mom. That was her. So here we are now, a little ways further down. Gideon is now about 8 months old or so, and I find out that I'm getting a new job. We're moving the family to Cleveland, Ohio. This is the start of my career. This is a brand new experience. This is big stuff. Well, here we go again. Mom giving me a rash of shit. You can't take my grandsons away. This is ridiculous. You shouldn't do this. How can you? Like, really just giving me the business. And look, I don't have a choice. What do you expect me to do? I just got laid off from my job, but the same company wants to transfer me and give me a management position because of how good I am at my job, but I got to relocate everybody to Cleveland, Ohio. They're even giving me money to relocate me to Cleveland, Ohio. Okay. So that's age 25. Age 25. Here we go. We're going. We're off to Cleveland. Whew. So we're in Cleveland, and it was like November of 99, I think is when we got out there. November 99, yeah. So we come around to a couple months down the road. It's now May of 2000. And my oldest brother's wife calls me one night right after I got home from work. I get this call from her, and she says, "Sit down." And I said, "Okay." I'm sitting, and I'm thinking, what happened? Man, something happened to my brother. Something happened to our great aunt who's really old. No. Mom's gone. So my mother died the way she lived, on her terms, under her own umbrella, by her own rules. She lived how she wanted to, and no one was going to tell her otherwise. She had a lot of various health issues throughout her life. She was a bit of a hypochondriac. She had the physician's desk reference next to her bed. I kid you not, she really did. And she would hop from doctor to doctor, basically telling them what she thought was wrong with her at the time, and getting them to prescribe whatever she decided she needed to be prescribed to address the thing that she knew she had, whatever that happened to be. Even at one point, she was working at a manufacturing company, and my wife was working there with her, and my mother mixed up two pills that she was supposed to have stopped that one. You cannot take that anymore because you're going to take this. She decided for herself she was going to take them both. She ended up in the hospital. They literally left work together. My wife had to drive her to the hospital. She survived that one. But again, the same thing where, she would go from doctor to doctor to figure out, how she gets her hands on what medications she thinks she needs. But it turned out that my mother had a medical condition that she needed a hysterectomy. That's really what it came down to. She apparently, and I didn't know this, had been told many, many, many times by her gynecologist that you need to have this hysterectomy or it's going to kill you. Screw you, no, you're gone. Right. The house I grew up in from age 12 to when I moved out is literally 1 mile from the general hospital in the city where I grew up. 1 mile. And I was told later that she didn't even make it that mile, that she was responsive in the ambulance when they were taking her out of the house, and by the time they had turned the corner onto the main road and were heading down the road towards the hospital, she was gone. She lost consciousness in the ambulance and never woke up again, and it passed away before she even got a mile down the road to the hospital. Basically, it bled out is what it boils down to. Her organs had shut down because there was not enough oxygen. There was not enough oxygen in her body. So she died very, very, very suddenly. And I obviously it hit me like a brick. I was like, what are you talking about? You know, that can't, you know, it's like that disbelief. You cannot believe that this person is suddenly gone. And this is the first like real loss of anyone in my whole life. And I think that based on that experience, I don't know, I don't think I'm special or different in this way, but it terrifies me to ever get that phone call again, to find out that someone I love is gone. And it's so strange because I did love her. I really did. You know, that's my mom, you know, and as much as we had a very thin relationship when I was little, and as much as we had a bit of a strained relationship when I was a teenager, we laughed from time to time, right? We would say something stupid or something funny to each other, and we would laugh for a bit and move on. I mean, it wasn't always all bad. It was, I don't know. I guess that's just the relationship, and everybody's got their own relationship with their parents, but I can't even fathom ever getting that call again and being so far from anyone that I can reach out to. Thank God for my wife. My wife was there and got me through that piece. But you know, that's the story of my mother. So you know, this is me trying to understand it a little better from the perspective of a 45-year-old as opposed to a 25-year-old. It still hits me. It hits me from time to time, you know. Believe what you want. I've told you what I believe. I believe that she did have a brief visitation with me in a dream, but it wasn't a dream. You know what I'm talking about, right? She came and said, I'm okay. You know, I was in the dream, I was in her backyard and the backyard I grew up with, and she told me she was okay. And I was okay for a long time, but it was difficult to know that was someone who was doing her best, but her own personality flaws held her back so much in life. There was so much more she probably could have done or been, and at the end died a very unnecessary young death just because of stubbornness. You know, she died the way she lived, on her terms, and no one was going to tell her otherwise. So if I have any stubborn streak in me, I guess I can attribute that to her. I guess that's where that comes from. But I don't think I've ever been as headstrong or stubborn as her. I don't believe so. So there's that. There's the first thing I'm coming to terms with is my life with my mother as a poor little kid growing up to a single mom who did her best and struggled a lot, got it wrong a lot, but somehow managed to put me out in the world. And here I am. So tomorrow I am going to rewind the tape, pick up on this story again, and talk about my father. And that's a very different conversation. And that one is probably, I don't know, maybe even a little bit tougher. We'll see. There's some things I got to work through on that as well. But I do appreciate the time. If you've listened to this podcast and made it all the way through, thank you. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with me. And wherever you are, I hope that you are safe and well and that your family is okay through these tough times. I will speak to you tomorrow. Have a good one.